Hi, I'm John Morrison, and we're here at the very first interview for the Mill Valley Film Festival section of Aspect Ratio. And I have with me director Nancy Sullivan Kelly, Nancy Kelly, and the her editor and partner Kenji Yamamoto. And I never make a mistake with Kenji Yamamoto because it's not Irish. So, and we're here because you've got a film in the Mill Valley Film Festival called Trust, which is, I'll have to say, an amazing film. I work with kids, and as you know, and as part of the CFI education program. And some of the stuff in that reminds me so much of some of the stuff that we do, but writ large, you know. And so I'd like to maybe start out with a clip, and the clip that you chose is a really interesting one that talks about recipes. Do you want to just give a little intro to it?
Sure. Trust is about this theater company in Chicago that works with immigrant teens called the Albany Park Theater Project, renowned in Chicago, and we hope soon to be nationwide. And one of the things that they do so well is they have these exercises that get the kids into thinking more abstractly, metaphorically, and this was an exercise that they do called recipes, where they ask each kid to write the recipe for how to make Jose, how to make Marlene. So that's what this exercise is.
Great. So we're going to take a look at it and then come back and talk about it afterwards.
We're going to switch into a part of the day to be sort of more story focused. Anybody in here like to cook? Anybody a good cook? Yeah? Oh, good. So we got a few people who know a thing or two about recipes. Okay. So think about yourself as a meal or as a dish.
I'm going to make you.
Right? So, and you're going to give the instructions, right, essentially, for how to make an Yvonne, how to make a Gabby. So we're going to give you about 40 minutes. So pens and pencils and
here's
pads.
some notepads.
Today's lesson, cooking a Jose soup. Wash out all the materials for our new meal, but take your time, I'm not a big deal. Make sure you have the materials gathered, but then again, it doesn't really matter. It's a simple task anyway. Fill the bottle up with all kinds of negative emotions, from the sense of loneliness at birth to the fear of everyone's reactions. Have a can full of great friends. Stir them properly. This isn't stew. You just made us Jose soup today.
A handful of my mother's genes, a handful of my father's. Break an egg into two. 1 stick of Puerto Rican, 1 teaspoon of ghetto, a pinch of prep, a pinch of poetry. Place under the sun until dark brown. Sprinkle a powder of Native American ancestors. Place on a tray that is short and call it the Jackie Allen mode.
Add a cup of pure flour, because I am a good Indian and proud of it, maybe sometimes, because I hate their traditions of always getting married to someone by arranging it. I hate it, but I guess I have to live with it. Then add a cup of confusion, because at times I never know what to do in life, and even at times I'd ask myself if I really do belong in the world. And then voila, there you go. You have just made a Janslin, and the one and only Janslin, and there will never be another Janslin.
How to make Stephanie. First, wash your hands. You don't want to leave any bad smudges on your creation. Next, collect the following ingredients. A bunch of crazy. You can collect this crazy from the tree called not being able to express herself at home, and now it's coming all out. Get 3 pounds of beautiful, awesome friends whom I learned to love and listen to. After you've mixed all of this together and read her a book about travel, warm her up with the biggest, longest hug ever and tell her you'll always be there, and that will give you, if you did everything right, a 5'1" girl named Stephanie.
Marlene,
I don't want to read it.
you want somebody else to read it?
Okay. How to make Marlene. A bottle of memories, a cup of happiness, the sour taste of pain. Now we are ready to cook. Mix a bottle of an 18 years old girlfriend memories with ones from 6 years ago. Let them cook. Meanwhile, get a cup of happiness and add a few drops of APTP to make it sweet. Don't let the memories cook too much. Once they are ready, leave the ones with a peaceful smell, and the ones that smell like pain, let them burn and put them away. If you want to have your way, add the final ingredient, which is love, and that's how you make Marlene.
I know that for some.
So, we've got a pretty dynamic clip there. And if you guys could talk a little bit, number one, about the project, the Albany Theater, the Albany Park Theater project, but also about your, I guess called journey through the film, and you're working with them over a period of quite a long time. So let's take it first. How did you discover the project and
Well, we made, Kenji and I, a documentary called Downside Up, which was on the PBS Independent Lens series. We also had a huge grant from the Ford Foundation and the National Endowment for the Arts to take Downside Up on a national tour. And one of the stops on the national tour was Chicago. Mm-hmm. And there's a great guy there in Chicago named Nick Rabkin, and he hosted a screening of Downside Up. And the next day, before I left town, he was, I don't know, I had a meal with him, and he said, so what do you want to do next? And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, something about, art, the transformative power of art with at-risk teenagers and immigrants, and I don't know. And he said, you got to check out the Albany Park Theater Project. And I did, and in January of 2004, I went, and you didn't come on that trip?
I did come on that trip, no.
To see them putting on a show that was called Heat Included, and they were also having kind of a winter festival, so some of the APTP, that's what they call themselves, APTP, is some of the veterans company veterans came back from college mm-hmm. and talked about their experience. And here are these kids from this immigrant neighborhood of the working poor. That is how you would describe Albany Park. It's in Northwest Chicago. There's 54 languages spoken in the high schools there. It's 54? 54. Mm-hmm. It is an astonishingly diverse neighborhood. And these kids, APTP veterans, were speaking, and let's see, 2 were attending Pomona College mm-hmm. here in California, private mm-hmm. liberal arts college. Mm-hmm. One was at the College of Worcester, which is another highly regarded private liberal arts college in Ohio, I think. And I think there was another person who was at Connecticut College. And they were talking about their experience living amongst people who had very different backgrounds than theirs, and just the delights of that kind of growth and discovery. And they had been launched on that path by the work that they had done with the Albany Park Theater Project.
Yeah. But then, I mean, that was 2004, mm-hmm. and it's now 2010. Yes. And I know this is usually a lengthy time between filming and release, but I'm taking it for granted that you guys had a very long haul on this.
We did have a long haul on it, and one of the things that Nancy and I do is that when we look at a project, we sit at our dinner table and we decide how much we want to invest ourselves in a project, because we know that documentaries take a long time, and the process of making a documentary is to observe, and we felt passionate about the various things that we're seeing, and the fact that the program itself was like, just an incredible program that the two co-founders of the theater, David Feiner and Laura Wiley, had set up for these kids. And part of their mandate was that, and I'll just quote from David and Laura. They said that these are our future leaders. All these kids potentially can be our future leaders of our state, our city, our country. And we just found it fascinating. So off we went. We decided that we would start to shoot. And there were many obstacles. Laura was very, very sick at the time, and she passed away. She died of ovarian cancer. And we actually had to think and ask ourselves, do we want to go forward? And the answer was yes, we still do. And there was still something to capture about these kids and capture their stories. So that's what kept us going. And we probably started 4 completely different films during this process. We're following this group of kids, and following their stories. And the basis of the Albany Park Theater Project is that they take the stories that the kids collect themselves, either in their neighborhood or about themselves, and one of them is chosen to be a play. And that's fascinating to us. So as we were going forward in time, we were not quite satisfied with how we were getting these stories. We were either too early or too late. Some of the kids, as we approached them in 2004, they were already in process in the completion of a play, which we were very, very interested in. And but we didn't capture the beginning of the story. So there was something missing. And as filmmakers, we really wanted to see what the seed of the story is, and where does it come from, and where does it end. So we kept coming back. And after Laura passed away, they asked us if we would not come by because they were mourning her death and recovering, and a lot of the kids had gone off and done other things, so their company was rather small, and they were in a recruitment phase. So we decided to go forward and shoot some of that, and that was when we discovered the story that we're about to present in Trust.
Yeah.
So that was quite a journey.
Well, a question I always hear asked of the documentary filmmakers from audiences is, why don't they notice you when you're doing, you're in these intimate situations, And I would think that, in particular with Trust, because it is about trust, how did you manage to, infiltrate is the wrong word because that's a little bit negative, but how did you manage to inject yourself into that society, that little piece of society? And it couldn't have been easy.
It's so funny. You're reminding me of we work with a guy named Bob Hawk, who's based in New York, used to be based here, and he looked at the first assembly, and one of the things that he said was, I kept asking myself, who are these people behind the camera, and how did they get this intimate access to this theater company? And
that's the word.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm so persistent. I think part of it is just never say, even when everyone else, including Kenji, is saying, maybe we should stop this project. This is impossible. I just didn't.
Yeah.
And I looked the other day in my computer. I have David Feiner and I have exchanged 880 emails.
Wow.
I adored those people from that very first time that I got to know them in January of 2004. I just adored them. I have some things in common with some of those kids, having come from the working class myself and gone to college on scholarship and come to live amongst people very different than the kind of people that I was raised with. And I know the value of going out into the world that way. And also, I think that, I mean, the kids, they weren't always completely welcoming. And I think even the company, sometimes we were just a complete pain. We were in the way. Our stuff was everywhere, you know, and it's not that big. Their space isn't that big. And but I think that they could tell how much I adored them.
Yeah. And how committed you were.
And how committed I was. And I think that, you know, David has a master's degree from the Yale Graduate School of Drama. And he's always he holds the bar very high for everyone at the company, including himself. And I think that they just felt like our story deserves to be told. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, there was this one day when I was like lugging gear up the steps. They are on the second floor at APTP, so you're always having to like haul everything. There's no elevator, and you know, Troy was one of the company members who was in 8th grade. She was standing at the top of the stairs, and she looked down at me as I was like lugging stuff, and she went, "Oh, you're here again?" No. I was like, "Yeah, nice to see you too."
Well, you know, it certainly doesn't, you know, come off that way in the camera, you know, because it's you are. It isn't. I mean, it always amazes me that the documentary film, good documentary filmmakers can do this. You know, to be the fly on the wall, essentially, and.
Yeah. Even when you're more like the elephant
in the room. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you set out to make one film, and you landed up really making another. Is that accurate?
Yeah. The first of the 4 films, because we literally did make this film 4 times. The first one, as Kenji said, we were trying to make about APTP's play, which was called Saffron, but we discovered in trying to edit the footage that we had to rely way too much on the adults to explain what was going on, because we had gotten into the process too late. Like, we started shooting in November of 2004. And then in 2005, APTP made a beautiful play, just terrific play called God's Work, based on the story of one of their company members, the child of Romanian immigrants. And she had just a heartbreaking story to tell, and they made this great play. But in late 2004, my doctor called me. I felt lousy. My doctor called me up and said, if you have any projects going, you better wrap them up, because you have to have spinal cord surgery, and you're going to be out of work for a long time. And so we didn't get to follow the making of God's Work, because that was 2005, and I was out of work the entire year. Yeah. But the first place that I went when I got better, because I couldn't travel, I couldn't do anything.
Yeah, you couldn't fly.
The first place that I went was back to Chicago to see a performance of God's Work. And there, WTTW, the public television station in Chicago, through one of their producers, Dan Andrews, a great guy, they were following the story of Laura for a documentary that they were making about the lives of artists, and Laura being the co-founder, and the take on her was she had ovarian cancer, but she was lucky enough to have health care, unlike many artists, and so Dan Andrews arranged for us to get all the dailies that were about APTP from WTTW, and we edited, I don't know, a 45-minute something.
We made about a dozen versions of it, yeah, so it was about an hour long.
And the heartbreaking thing about that was that because it was focusing on Laura, and we wanted our documentary to focus on the kids, it was literally, the camera was in the wrong place, because it was always featuring Laura, who we adored and was so articulate and artistic. But we wanted, when the camera turned to, like, Jesus, for example, in a scene, it would be on Jesus's ear, his profile. And it was just the classic example for a filmmaker of not all found footage is going to give you the documentary that you are trying to make.
Yeah.
And no one could understand what we were trying to do in that particular version. So then we started following the documentary about genocide. They were following. They were going to make a play about genocide based on the experience of one company member who was from Cambodia. His parents and grandparents were from Cambodia. He was born in the United States. But Laura got too sick.
But the final one you decided on, or I guess maybe you could even say grew, in the fertile ground you'd given it, was Marlene, who was in this clip.
And Nancy was unavailable to direct that scene, so I went to Chicago, and it was a recruitment scene, and they were recruiting new members to their theater company. It was Morrison. And so we shot at the local high school in the neighborhood, the high school that has 54 different languages spoken. And I was not aware of any of the new members, but so our cinematographer, videographer, Dan Gold, and I shot every teenager that was there as fully as we could. And for all intents and purposes, it was meant to be a scene about the various kids that were being recruited. And then David Feiner, the executive director of the Albany Park Theater Project, called Nancy 1 or 2 months later and said, I think there's someone in this group, and I'm pretty sure you were shooting her, that has potentially an interesting story that we're interested in. And she will present her story to the company members, all the other teenagers, and if it turns out that it's interesting enough, there's a potential that we might make a play out of it. And this is the story of Marlene. And sure enough, we went back into the footage and we saw that Marlene was covered, and there she is. And so that was the beginning of some exciting journey that we're about to set off to do. So that was really something.
Right, and then we went back in August of 2008 during APTP summer camp, where they have sort of an intensive workshop for 5 days, and there were no guarantees that Marlene was going to tell her story. But on the second day, she sat in that sacred story circle of APTPs and told a heartbreaking story about her life, and told it sometimes with tears, sometimes with a smile. I mean, I think she talked for 1 hour and 45 minutes.
Wow.
And to a group of kids who were, it was August of 2008, most of those kids are about 25 kids in the circle. Almost every single one of them was about to go into 8th grade. And David had been having a hard time with that group to get them to sit still and listen. And you can see in the footage they're just like leaning forward, listening to her. And
well, that's the way I felt when I watched your film, and I think that we're going to leave the interview here because it's a good point to kind of have a nice cliffhanger. So what is the story of Marlene? You know?
What is?
And,
Yes.
And it's the core of the film, although the project is core of the film too. So thanks, guys. It's a wonderful film, and it's playing at the Mill Valley Film Festival.
Come see it.
Come see it.
Oh, sure, of course. We come to this festival every year.
for over 20 years. So this is my favorite festival.
Okay, and
I joked to Mark Fishkin, I've never been able to get opening night tickets. He said, I think we can help you out this year. So no, this is home. This is home, and I'm very excited. Yes. No, this would be my dream of where to have a film open. So.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, and could you tell us a little about Conviction?
It's Conviction is the true story of a woman named Betty Ann Waters, working class woman, high school dropout, who decided to go to law school to get her brother out of prison. He was wrongfully convicted. They didn't have money for a good attorney. His public defender didn't help him. She said, there's no one but me. And he said, there's no one but you. And without spoiling it, I'll tell you it has a happy ending.
Crazy with it makes your brain into scrambled eggs because you're just doing one bit after another. But when you're actually having a conversation, that's different. And a real orthodox interview.
Is it like opening night for you when your movie shows at a festival like this? Did you get jittery about what people think about it?
We just did a bunch of them in LA, so we're a little jaded now. but we're way confident. But we're also I think we're excited because we're both Bay Area people. Yeah. So I think we have family and friends here. We're excited to get their reaction.
Welcome you to the 33rd Mill Valley Film Festival, sponsored opening night, sponsored by Wells Fargo. Thank you for coming. The film that you're about to see tonight is a prime example that you may have heard me talk about before, of what the difference makes between a good film and a great film, is that this has everything a good film has and more. It has something significant to say that resonates on a personal level and a universal level. And when my programming staff and myself and Zoe Elton find a film like this, we are just so excited to be able to share it with you, our audience. And we're also delighted because this evening we have the screenwriter with us. We have Pamela Gray, who's the writer of one of my favorite films, A Walk on the Moon, starring Diane Lane, and also directed by Tony Goldwyn. And we also have with us tonight a gentleman who has been since he broke through in 1996, has been working consistently in character roles in independent films like Choke, and bigger films like Galaxy Quest and Charlie's Angels, Sam Rockwell. Please welcome the book to the stage.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming. He writes my line.